Hello aspirants, looking at current affairs for 11th Feb. The news items that we have picked up from the Hindu are these 8. We'll look at them in detail. The first one, agency to integrate defense acquisitions. So all the defense acquisitions which take place in the country have to be integrated through one particular organization, and that has been planned to set up. So this organization will be called Defense Procurement Organization. So this will integrate and streamline all the defense acquisitions so that they happen quickly too. So the present defense procurement process, there have been many modifications done to it to ensure that all capital defense procurements, means all defense deals of larger amount, all such deals happen in a transparent manner. The acquisition is speeded up. So that is what the objective is. So for this purpose, a committee had been set up by the government. This was headed by Dr. Preetham Singh, who is former director of IIM Lucknow. So he has just submitted his report on the modalities, how to set up a defense procurement organization. So this report would be studied, and the sources say that it would take around 2 to 3 years. By that time, the defense procurement organization would be set up. So in the meanwhile, to Cabinet Committee on Security. So this is a committee comprising of important ministers. This is headed by the Prime Minister himself. So this Cabinet Committee on Security has made modifications in the defense deal approvals. So presently, depending on how much the defense deal comprises of what value it is, who will be the authority who approves it is decided. So those approval levels have been increased now. We'll look into that too. And another point which is highlighted is presently in defense deals, what India is emphasizing on is Make in India. So Make in India in defense is emphasized, means the defense public sector undertakings should be well equipped to manufacture or make in India those defense equipments which are acquired or which are proposed to be brought. So this, it is also highlighted that there is no match between the capabilities. And the capabilities of defense public sector undertakings are not a match for what is expected from them. So this is also an area which needs to be worked on. So focus on development, they say, is low key. So production process, procurement process would be rationalized, but then this is also an area which needs to be looked into. And of course, we are trying to bring in private sector into defense also, but again, they do not have that much of history of work in this sector. So that is why the PSUs have to be empowered as well. Now regarding the defense deal approval, so this has recently been modified. The Cabinet Committee on Security has approved shortening the procurement cycle so that the defense deals can be approved quicker. So this is, the defense minister has the right to clear, is empowered to clear deals up to 2,000 crore rupees now. So that it was earlier 500 crores. Now he has the power to clear deals up to 2,000 crore rupees. So up to 500 crores now, even the defense secretary has the financial power to approve. So this has been modified. Then the defense minister along with finance minister can approve projects up to 3,000 crores. So this was 2,000, 3,000, and above 3,000 crore would be approved by this Cabinet Committee on Security. So majority of the deals are below 3,000 only. So about 70% of such deals which are below 3,000 on an average, so they would be cleared at these minister, defense secretary, defense minister, or defense minister, finance minister together. They would be approving it. And the fourth level of higher value defense deals will be Cabinet Committee on Security, again, which is headed by Prime Minister himself. This is the body which has modified this whole process also. Then the next news item is, in Haryana district, no toilet, no marriage. So this is a proposal which has been put forth in this Haryana district, Nuh district. So these here imams, around 1,200 imams, they have decided that they would not solemnize marriages of brides and grooms who do not have toilets in their homes. So they have to produce a certificate from their village sarpanch which is verifying that the toilet is present in their homes. Only then their marriage would be solemnized. So this is a step taken to end open defecation, which these imams say that this is against Islam. Islam emphasizes on cleanliness, and open defecation is not Islamic at all. It's an un-Islamic method, and that's why they will work towards this ending open defecation, and they are also highlighting on working against consumption of liquor. So the ban of consumption of liquor would be promoted, and also on playing music at weddings. Then the next news item is, Supreme Court extends ban on firecracker sale. So this was the ban which Supreme Court had put in November 2016 in Delhi NCR region. So air pollution during winter in Delhi is quite high because of the because it been very cold too, so the air movement does not take place and air pollution all settles in the Delhi region. So that is why stop even firecrackers, which are generally popular in Diwali, so they have also been banned completely, and the Supreme Court has presently extended this ban. So it's been 3 months now, so now they have been extended further too, and the stockpile which is also there with merchants, shopkeepers, even that would not be allowed to be used. These merchants said that they should be allowed to use them or sell them outside Delhi NCR. They can go and sell it in Bombay or elsewhere, but the Supreme Court said no. Then why should you go ahead and do pollution in some other region? So it has asked the Central Pollution Control Board to find out the way how much of these, an inventory of how much of these firecrackers are there with traders and how should they be disposed of. So Supreme Court does not want them to be sold anywhere else too. And it has said this was the case which was filed by 3 children from Delhi. So during this time it was seen that in Delhi air pollution levels were so severe, the levels were so high that children were also suffering. It was said that 40% of children in Delhi suffered from respiratory diseases. And they say that this because of firecracker burning, it's not just during that time, but even post that. The poisonous tang of Diwali firecrackers, which remains in the air, affects the breathing of these children. So that is why these steps have been taken, complete ban on firecrackers. Supreme Court says that government's authority to intervene in people's right is more important when it comes to larger public good. So when tackling air pollution, the specific personal right of celebrating a festival or wedding as such does not hold ground. So this right to public good, so air is public good which should be maintained as such. So that is the larger responsibility which would be fulfilled for these, which these rights would not have any significance. Then the next news item is leopards caught in Sariska to be kept under observation. So these were 2 leopards which have been caught by the forest authorities in Sariska Tiger Reserve. So this is in Rajasthan. So this Sariska Tiger Reserve, Alwar district in Rajasthan, the core area here is presently dominated by tigers. After the tigers were reintroduced, the tigers here had become extinct in Sariska. They were reintroduced from Ranthambore National Park, again in Rajasthan. So after the reintroduction of tigers here, leopards space has reduced. Earlier leopards were concentrated in core areas, but because of tigers present there, leopards cannot roam around freely in that region because that becomes tiger territory. So they have come to the periphery, because of which man-animal conflict is rising now. So they are attacking the villagers. You can see they have attacked villagers residing in the peripheral areas of this Sariska Tiger Reserve. So that is why now they have been caught. So this is the issue which has been arose because of tigers reintroduction too. So they'll be again taken back to Sariska Reserve again too. So these are the various tiger reserves in the country. You can see this is Sariska and this is Ranthambore Tiger Reserve. Then the next news item is Centre says no to news broadcast via FM. So this was an issue which was raised by the Supreme Court. It had asked the centre to give its viewpoint about why news broadcasting is not allowed by FM radio stations. Because news broadcasting is presently done by various TV channels. So there are a number of TV channels, news channels of TV2 which broadcast news. Then there are many FM radio stations too, but they are not allowed to broadcast news. So why is this distinction there? Because Doordarshan is also a national channel which broadcasts news. Earlier it was the only channel, but now since private channels have also come in, and these are their news channels too which broadcast news, but FM private channels are not allowed. So government has given its response on this viewpoint now, because Supreme Court was keen give a justification why this is not allowed, or otherwise you should open it up. So presently on radio, FM radio, news broadcast is the monopoly of All India Radio. So Prasar Bharati has under it All India Radio and Doordarshan. This national broadcaster for FMs is All India Radio only. No private radio is allowed. If they want to, they can broadcast the same news which All India Radio broadcasts. They cannot have their own current affairs content broadcasted. So the response to this affidavit from the Supreme Court has been filed by the government in the Supreme Court. Is a response to this question which was put forth by it. So in this affidavit, the centre is saying that giving news broadcast rights to private FM radio operators and community radio stations, which are large number of them, which are run by NGOs, this will open up anti-national and radical elements which are located within the country to propagate their vested interests and agenda to the masses. So government is up against NGOs is clearly seen. They consider them anti-national, they consider them as foreign intervention in the country and trying to influence the masses. So the anti-NGO stand of the government is clearly evident right now too, and this is the fear that they have, because there are FM radio operators too, private radio stations too, and there are many community radio stations too. So the government fears that this will be happen after the radios are allowed, FM radios are allowed to broadcast their own news and current affairs content. So that is why it says we'll not open it up. It says there are 281 private FM channels in 84 cities. Also, government has permitted 519 organizations to operate community radio stations in India. So these NGOs which are operating community radio stations have been approved by the government. So even out of these, it says 519, out of these organizations, only 201 organizations are actually operationalizing these community radio stations. The government says that it is too much a number and there is not enough capacity to regulate them. So because regulation is not possible, they are not allowed to broadcast. So this is the government's viewpoint presently. Then the next news item is government sets up interdepartmental task force to crack down on Benami firms. So the government has set up a task force which is comprising of various ministries and enforcement agencies. So all will come up together to crack down shell companies. So what are shell companies? We have discussed this earlier, that there is an actual company which is functioning, but a shell company is established, say, in another country, so that the transactions which are seen to actually taking place through that shell company, those are not the ones which are functioning. The actual functioning takes place through another company. So that is only a shell company which is established as a face of the company. So many such shell companies do operate and they are indulging in money laundering and tax evasion. Many times this shell company may also be hiding some illegal activity which is being conducted, and many times it may also be a legal activity, but just for tax evasion such shell companies are established. So shell means like a covering, hollow covering. It's just a shell. There's nothing inside. So that's a company just as a face. Like that. So presently it says that already 560 beneficiaries who have laundered 3,900 crores and 54 CAs, chartered accountants, who are involved in money laundering have been identified and actions would be taken against them. So the agencies will invoke Benami Transactions Prohibition Amendment Act, the recently passed act, against these shell companies. The accounts will be freezed and their names will be struck off. So all these names of these shell companies, dormant companies which are there, which are not functioning, those names would be struck off as such. So they say there are around 15 lakh registered companies in India, but only 6 lakh file annual taxation returns. So that is why there is a huge suspicion. There are a number of companies which are indulging in financial irregularities. They are not even filing returns. So what's going on? So that is why even the Serious Frauds Investigation Organization has filed criminal prosecution for cheating the government, and probes have been initiated against 49 shell companies. Okay. So what is this Benami Transactions Prohibition Act, which was just amended in 2016? We'll look at it. So what is a Benami transaction? So a transaction which is taking place, any property transacted, it is called a Benami transaction. The property is called a Benami property if any of the following conditions satisfy. Means if it's a property which has been taken in the name of a person who does not have the capacity to have such a transaction done. So he has been provided for money by another person, so that later he would be benefited. This person behind would be benefiting. The future benefits would go to him. So such a transaction is called a Benami transaction. You cannot use somebody's name for such a transaction. You're providing the money. So that is there. So of course there are exceptions here. Means if it's the name of the wife or brother, sister or something, then it is allowed. It's not called a Benami transaction. So that exceptions are also there. Then second is if it's done in the name of a person who does not even exist. So transaction is done in a fictitious name. So it's a Benami transaction. The property is called Benami property. The government confiscates it. Then even if the transaction is done in the name of a person, but he denies that he is aware of such a transaction, he denies ownership, then again it's a Benami property confiscated by the government. Even penalties are imposed for holding a Benami property. So these penalties are also there. You can see up to 25% of the market value of the property. Even imprisonment, rigorous imprisonment of 1 year to 7 years. So these are there for offences also. So this is regarding Benami Property Transaction Act. These are the exceptions, that if it's in the name of the spouse or brother, sister or something like that, so it's, Hindu undivided family is owning it, held by this family as such, then it is not a Benami transaction as such. So these provisions are used to take care of these shell companies also, because shell companies are actually not the actual operators and owners here who are named. So these provisions of this new amended act can also be used to confiscate the such Benami properties. You can see the retransfer of Benami property is also prohibited under the act, right? So that is there. Then the next news item is China buoyant after Trump's U-turn. So China has again raised because of Donald Trump making a U-turn now. When he became the president, we saw he took a phone call, telephonic conversation, which was not even before which was before he even entered the White House. So that telephonic conversation from the Taiwan president had made a huge issue, because China says Taiwan is not an independent country. How can you take a phone call from them? Because China says it's one China policy, means Taiwan, which is an island. It's actually a nation only, but it's not an independent nation. China has its sovereignty over it, but then the country functions independently. So Taiwan functions independently, but it comes under China only. So that is called one China policy, that all these are also part of China. They cannot claim independence. You will hear of Taiwan as called Chinese Taipei also. When you see sports news and where, Olympics news or something, you will see country named as Chinese Taipei. So that's actually Taiwan. So earlier, US President Donald Trump had a different tone. He had refuted what is this one China policy. That was before he entered White House, when China had raised its voice against this conversation with Taiwan president of US President. Now US President Donald Trump had a telephonic conversation with Chinese President Xi Jinping, and it is said the air was cleared. Donald Trump has clearly endorsed one China policy, so there is no issue as such on this aspect now. So the two countries will work together. China has been lifted up again, because earlier it was seen there would be a threat that there would be a rift or a face-off between USA and China. Even Russia was talking of bringing the two countries together. All three countries should work together. What was Russian President Vladimir Putin's suggestion, so that global issues can be resolved. So three countries coming together was very important, as earlier stated too. So now the two are together, so that's a good thing. Though for India had also been uplifted when China had been brought down, because China was also toning down towards India, because having too many enemies in world politics is not good. But now China, US are showing that, okay, there's no concern with respect to one China policy. So the other concerns which the two countries have will be taken up now. So there are two major concerns which the US and China have. One is with respect to the currency exchange rate, and other is with respect to trade, the huge trade deficit which has come up, because China exports goods in a huge amount to USA. So that is one concern. So protectionism, as we see in USA, has been raising. So this is one aspect. And currency exchange rate is a concern, because US currency dollar is market determined, but Chinese currency yuan is not market determined. The government still regulates it. So the exchange rate also with respect to dollar, how much would it be, would be determined by Chinese government. So then when the trade deficit is also there, means the currency which is coming in dollars, that also how much would it value in terms of yuan will be determined by the government. So that is also a huge concern here. So these two issues are the major issues which need to be resolved between the two countries. So now they would be taken up. So that is the news. And the last news item is Bihar opposition demands action on paper leak scam. So this was in news. Bihar Staff Selection Commission question paper was leaked, and that's why the exam was also cancelled. And the secretary of Bihar Staff Selection Commission, Parmeshwar Ram, he has been arrested and sent to jail. He has named 36 people, including 7 ministers and 9 bureaucrats. And he says they put pressure on him to offer these jobs in government services to people whom they pick up. So that's why question paper leaks were done, and now the government will initiate actions against these people named. So inquiries would take place. He says that it is a multi-crore scam involving top politicians and bureaucrats. So he is just a small fry, he says. He's just a pawn in the whole big game as such on government jobs. So this is a corruption news presently opened up. So these are the news items. Thank you.